Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Gradcracker webinar and our last webinar of this season, where I'm beyond excited to be joined by CERN. For those of you who aren't familiar with CERN, then they are the European Organisation for Nuclear Research. At CERN, physicists and engineers and many more types of people are probing the fundamental structure of the universe. They use the world's largest and most complex scientific instruments to study the basic constituents of matter, the fundamental particles. Today, we're going to be hearing about how you, our STEM students, could end up working at a place like nowhere else on Earth. So let's jump in. Firstly, let's start by meeting Priscilla and Adam. So could you start by telling our audience a little bit more about your roles at CERN? Priscilla, starting with you.
Sure. So hi, everyone. Good afternoon to all the students joining from different universities in the UK. I have been working at CERN for the last 4 years in the talent acquisition team, and I support the function with various varied tasks. I would say I'm responsible for sourcing students, for example, on Gradcracker, and also running A to Z recruitment, as we say in talent acquisition. So from start to the day the person starts. But I also work under the talent acquisition team. We have a sub team that is called the talent attraction team. So coordinating outreach events for CERN to attend, planning social media campaigns to promote our many internships and graduate programs. I also report on the statistics on the success of those events and also on success of job boards. And I have also been recently appointed as the Diversity and Inclusion Officer for HR to improve our diversity, especially in terms of underrepresented member states and gender.
Fantastic. Must keep you very busy there, Priscilla.
I'm very busy.
Yeah, very busy. And Adam, could you tell us a bit more about your role, please?
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining. I'm Adam. I also work at talent acquisition, and I'm actually an admin student. So I do here my 12 months internship. I started in September, so I'm still quite a newbie, but yeah, it's on the halfway. And Priscilla is actually my supervisor. So basically from supporting all the recruitment processes, I also help with employer branding and outreach events. So now I should be like the main contact person for the UK, because we very welcome the UK nationals to apply for our jobs. I also help with the statistics, and also I love to present. So maybe this is the reason why I'm here today.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adam. So will the students applying today from the UK, will they be in contact with either yourself or Priscilla during the recruitment process?
Very probably, if they would be applying for technical studentship or for the graduate roles.
Fantastic. So there you go. You can put a face to a name there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moving back to you, Priscilla, could you just tell us a little bit more about what CERN does? I know it's difficult to encapsulate quickly, but if you could give it a go, that'd be fab.
Sure, and I think you introduced a little bit about CERN, explained that it stands for the European Organization for Nuclear Research. We hire physicists, engineers, and technicians in order for us to understand more about the fundamental structure of the universe. And we use the world's largest and most complex scientific instruments to understand these basic constituents of matter and the fundamental particles. And the most famous of them all is the Large Hadron Collider, where trillions of protons race around the 27-kilometer ring collider in opposite directions over 11,000 times per second, traveling very close to the speed of light. But also there are more to CERN than just the Large Hadron Collider. However, it's the most successful one. We actually have a whole lot of accelerators in what we call the CERN's accelerator complex, which is a succession of machines that accelerate particles to increasing higher energies, and each machine boosts the energy of a beam of particles before injecting it into the next machine in sequence. Ultimately, it culminates to the Large Hadron Collider. And just for reference, because I mentioned before about the underrepresented member states, we are run by 23 member states and 10 associate member states. They are the ones that contributes towards the CERN's budget as an intergovernmental organization. But also there are many other countries around the world involved with CERN in different ways. And we welcome on site every day, for example, about 9,000 people, ranging from experienced professionals, experienced scientists, recent graduates, students, and high school students even. So, and also not only from those member states, we collaborate with universities all around the globe.
Fantastic. Thank you, Priscilla. There really is so much going on at CERN, isn't there? And today we are going to hear from a couple of technical students. We'll come and meet Fergus and Ellie in a minute to tell you a little bit about a couple of different areas of CERN, but there is a huge amount of opportunity.
So can I just interrupt? Sorry to be a pain, but I'm just thinking, Priscilla, so right now, just to put in perspective, it looks as though you are sat in the ring. Is that right?
So I'm not in the tunnel, but I thought it would be interesting for the students to have a glance of what's happening 100 meters underground.
Just so you've got particles whizzing past you at the moment.
It does look very realistic, though.
Just doesn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, Steph.
Yeah, no, that's fine. So yeah, brings me kind of next to you, Priscilla, to find out again a little bit more about your student and graduate program opportunities and what the students watching today could apply to.
Sure. So at CERN, we have like a menu of options. There are a lot of programs in which students and graduates can join. The one that I'm not going to go into too much detail, but it's called the short-term internship. It is open all year round. You can apply at any moment in time for the 2023 call. And you can stay here up to 6 months and as little as 1 month. Now, this program welcomes the students from, in the UK, I think it's called like the HND diploma, NVQ, bachelor and master's. So you don't really have to be at the university level. You can be studying at a technical college and still benefit from from a short experience here at CERN. Now, the most famous internship program we have is the technical student program, which is relevant for the STEM students joining us today. Now, for that program, you have to have completed at least 18 months of undergrad studies to benefit from and being eligible actually to apply for the program. And you can stay at CERN for a maximum period of 1 year. In the job description, when you read, which is currently open for applications and you can apply via the Gradcracker, all our opportunities relevant to students are on the Gradcracker platform and has been for years. It states that the minimum that you can come for an internship is 4 months, and this is true. So if you only have 4 months to spare and you want to apply for the technical student program, you can. However, the longer you want to stay and you state this in the application, the better chances you have to be selected, just because the rotation will, imagine having one supervisor having to train 3 times a year, 3 different students. So I think the preference usually it's that you can stay longer than 4 months. But if you only have 4 or 6 months, you just want to stay 1 semester, apply anyway. Don't hesitate, but have this in mind. So we welcome applications from students in a wide range of engineering and computing students and programs, and also applied physics. So when you apply for the program, you can select, well, how can I say? So we have 6 different vacancies, job descriptions for this technical student program, ranging from mechanical engineering, electronics and electrical engineering as one of the job descriptions, IT, mathematics and computing as another job description, civil engineering is another one. So students often ask, should I just apply for one, but I want to increase my chances? You can apply for as many of those 6 you would like, so you have a more visibility of your application, but and you can apply for as little as 1. So it depends on how you're going to have to build the application all over again. So it's about just consider that. For this program, so we welcome bachelor and master students. Then we have a graduate program. Just by the way, it's going to close on the 27th of March. So if you are thinking of applying, please at least read the job description now, even if you want to build your application, in 1 month from now, because there are some preparatory documentation that you have to consider. For example, reaching out to someone at your university to write your reference letter, and because professors and teachers are very busy, better to give them enough notice. And for the graduate programs, we just recently revamped the graduate programs. Used to be called junior and senior fellowship programs. Now it's called early careers. So if you are about to graduate from your bachelor or master's degree and have or just graduated and have less than 2 years of work experience, you can apply for a program called the Origin program, but you see as early careers professionals, and it's currently closed for applications, but we're going to open up in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And also in this program, because it's a graduate scheme, you can stay at CERN for up to 3 years. Also in a lot of different STEM areas, STEM domains, and including administration, but I know it's not the focus of the students joining today. But just so you know, if you have a neighbor or a friend that is into admin, they can also join CERN. And also the other program is called the Quest program. For those, it's called the Experienced Project Graduates. So if you have a master's degree and at least 2 years of experience, or are just about to submit your PhD thesis, then you join for this program, but it's just going to open in June. But just for the audience to understand that no matter where you are in your career right now, CERN has an opportunity for you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Priscilla. That's a really great overview of all the opportunities. And for those of you that are here today that are, looking for that 12-month internship, they're open right now on the Gradcracker Company Hub. So go and get your applications in after the webinar today. But if you are looking for a graduate position, like Priscilla said, they'll be opening in the next 2 or 3 weeks. And make sure you go to the Gradcracker Hub after this, follow CERN, and then you'll be alerted on the day that those roles go live. Thank you so much for that introduction. Adam, we're going to be coming back to you a bit later in the webinar just to find out more about the recruitment process and some of the things that Priscilla touched upon there, and they're a little bit different about applying to CERN. But for now, we're going to move across to meet the rest of our panel. So we are joined by Ellie and Fergus, who are both technical students at CERN, or as we've just learned, year-long placement students, and who both use Gradcracker to find out about CERN's opportunities. So to start us off, Fergus, where did you go to university? What do you study? And when did you join CERN?
All right, hi. So I'm studying electronic engineering at the University of Manchester, and I started CERN last May 2022. So I'm doing a 1-year technical studentship. So I'll be finishing this May.
Fantastic. Thank you, Fergus. And Ellie, where do you go to university? What do you study? And when did you join CERN?
Hi. So I go to University of Sheffield. I study general engineering, and I've specialised in energy and sustainability. Like Fergus, I'm doing my placement at CERN for a year. I've actually managed just to get an extension of 2 months. So I will be here for 14 months now, which is very exciting. And I started in July.
Brilliant.
Last year.
Thank you very much. I'm going to hand over to Jess now, and she's going to find out even more about your journey so far.
I am. Thanks, Sophie. And guys, I'm so excited to be speaking to you all today. Honestly, I've been geeking away over the weekend thinking, right, what's this? What's that? And so you're going to have to bear with me when I ask these technical questions, or if I ask you anything that's a bit silly, so just bear with me. But I am so excited to be speaking to you all. So first, I want to find out a bit more about your roles and what life is actually like at CERN. So, Ellie, I'll come to you first. So, if you could just tell us a bit more about your current role and what the team is like at CERN.
So, as I said before, I'm a technical student, and I work in the CERN cryogenics lab. And here we do research and development for basically minus 173 degrees Celsius down to minus 273, which is essentially as close to absolute zero as you can get. Like, it's very, very cold because the LHC, Large Hadron Collider, it needs to operate at very cold temperatures.
Yeah,
it's one of the coldest places in the world.
Yeah.
So is the cryogenics department where I work.
Yeah.
My team is really lovely. I made a lot of good friends here.
Yeah.
And so I'm doing research on a system with some heat exchangers, and I'm trying to basically maximize the efficiency of the system using various methods. And I get to work with liquid helium, and it's liquid helium at about 4.5 Kelvin, which is again like minus 269 Celsius. So I work with very, very cold things.
So Kelvin is a type of temperature gauge, isn't it? Then where how you measure temperature, and it's kind of the coldest way of measuring it.
Yeah. So 0 Kelvin is
0 Kelvin.
minus 273.15 degrees Celsius, and you can't get physically colder than that. Like there's nothing anywhere in the whole universe.
I read in the universe.
Yeah.
In the universe. So I've got so many questions, Ellie, that I'm going to come to you now because I'm just too excited. So I want to know why, how, and how much does it take to get, that cold, and what you have to do to keep it that cold as well. So tell me a bit about that and what it actually consists of.
So in terms of my system, I have something called a cryo cooler. Okay. And it essentially is various pumps which manages to pump my system down, and I can get to about 10 Kelvin. I hope it's okay that I talk in Kelvin because I don't make the translation.
I know what Kelvin is, but yeah, before I'll be like, what's that?
And so I use this cryo cooler, and I have 3 heat exchangers, and obviously heat exchangers is something like what's in your fridge essentially. Exchanges the heat so you can get colder and colder. So by having 3 heat exchangers, I managed to boost the efficiency of my system.
Yeah.
But we also have something called a liquefier. So we liquefy the liquid helium, and we store it in a big vat called a dewar. And when the helium comes out the dewar, it's already in liquid form, so it's already quite cold because it's pressurized. So we don't have to cool it down from room temperature when we use the liquid helium from this big dewar that we have.
So I think you kind of answered this then. So do you only have to have it that cold when you are running the LHC, or is it all the time you keep it this temperature?
Well, the LHC runs at about 1.9 Kelvin, which is very, very cold because 0 is the coldest. I'm not sure what the temperature is at right now of the LHC because the LHC is off right now. So it's not currently.
So you don't have that. You don't have to keep it that cold all the time. Then it's just when you're doing the experiments.
No, but you have to be careful that it doesn't warm up too much because of the material differences, because obviously materials shrink when they get cold, and you have to be very careful because it can deform and things break if it heats up too quickly.
I see. Yeah. And in terms of the reason why you keep it that cold,
that's because we have magnets in the LHC, and to run very good efficiency, we want them to be superconducting. And that can only happen when they are a certain temperature. So we need to make sure that it stays cold so the superconducting magnets work.
So you have less resistance to current power.
Fantastic.
So Ellie, I'm going to come back to you on terms of typical projects that you've been working on, because I know when we did our prep call, you mentioned some really interesting things that I want to delve on as well. But Fergus, I'm going to come to you next, if that's okay. If you could just do a bit more of an introduction about your current role and what your team also looks like at CERN.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working on digital design for electronics used in the power converters at CERN to power the CERN accelerator complex. So all of the magnets need powering this electromagnet and needs a certain current. So I'm working on a device that controls these big electrical power converters. That's what I'm doing at the moment. But also power converters are also used throughout CERN for less interesting things like powering this computer or the lights or stuff like that.
Yeah. And you manage all of that stuff from computer lights all the way through to the LHC?
Well, our group does.
Okay. Yeah, your team does. Tell us a bit about your team then. What's it kind of look like? And are you in a big group or is it just a small team you work in?
So in my section, there's about 12 people from all different nationalities.
Brilliant. And then in terms of experience then, is it you that's kind of just in that team that's just on placement? Or are you mixed with other students as well that are out on placement?
No, there are lots of students, and the students come and go. So there's another 3 students in my team at the moment, and then there's also some like graduate students as well.
Ah, fantastic.
I'm just going to jump in, sorry, Jess. And when you, and Fergus already, either of you can answer this. When you applied to CERN, obviously you applied to one of the particular streams that Priscilla touched upon earlier, you know, electrical engineering, etc. When did you kind of find out that what particular area of CERN you were going to work in, and how did that process work? Did you have any input in that, or was it this is where the particular projects are at the moment?
So you receive a email or a call from a supervisor who's interested in hiring you, and then they'll give you the project and they'll send you like a document with what you're going to do, and you can decide. So sometimes you might have multiple supervisors, and then you can choose which one, but usually you just get one supervisor asking.
Depends how in demand you are then.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic. Sorry, Jess, I just thought I'd just clarify on how that element of it worked, because obviously there's so many different areas that you could work in at CERN. It must be quite overwhelming if you had to choose yourself. So
yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, in terms of Fergus, your kind of role then. So in terms of you've mentioned your team, but tell us a bit about your setup then. So you mentioned earlier when we spoke again before the session that you're in the office today. You typically tend to work in the office. So tell us a bit about your setup there.
Okay, yeah, so I work on something called FPGA engineering. I don't know if that means anything to you, but basically we're designing digital electronics for these chips. And most of the time I'm just using software on my PC, different software to design and simulate this stuff. But then sometimes we can go into the lab, test the electronics and stuff like that. So that's always fun.
Yeah, sounds it. So in terms of what kind of tests are you doing then? Can you tell us a bit about what kind of tests you are running?
Yeah, so you just want to verify that you make something and you want to verify that it works, because this technology can be important. For example, this piece of hardware I'm designing at the moment will be used in a system which is switching 60 megawatts of power. That's the same as 40,000 homes. So you need to test this electronics to make sure it's doing the right thing. Because if you blow up one of these capacitors, then it's going to make a big hole.
Absolutely.
Nobody wants that.
And is it going to plan at the moment, Fergus?
Yeah, it's going well. I've got another 2 months, so I just need to get my project finished up before then.
Okay, so that's the time frame then. You've got to get this project finished in the next 2 months.
Yeah, before I finish my contract in May. So.
Yeah, definitely. Good stuff. Okay, so Ellie, I'm going to come back to you. And if you could just tell us a bit more about exactly what you've been working on in your studentship so far. And again, you mentioned about, again, some projects that you've been working on with a colleague who's doing a PhD. You mentioned that as well before the session.
Yeah, so my system was essentially designed in someone's PhD that they were writing in combination with CERN and ESA, which is European Space Agency.
Yeah.
So the system and the configuration was designed it's a remote cooling system, because sometimes you have a very radioactive area that you want to cool, and that messes up with the cryo fan and the cryo coolers, because it can be quite sensitive. So you need to have distance between your cooling source and what you're actually going to cool. And then there's also the case of vibrations. So one of the applications for this system is it helps to detect antimatter. So they use very sensitive magnets to hold it in place. And for this, you can't have a large cryocooler right next to it, because the vibrations are so much that they disrupt the field. So we have to have remote cooling, which is what my system is designed for. so we can have the cooling source and then have a wire or transfer line cooling the magnets to hold this in place. So that's some of the applications. But for me, I want to apply the maximum amount of power onto a little heater to basically simulate something that I need to cool. And I change different variables in the system. So I have different valves that I open and close. I have the pressure, like I can put more or less helium in. I've been changing the pumps a little bit. So we just had a single pump and now I put pump in series. And then we tried to do it with a vacuum pump because a vacuum pump is a very strong pump. And that didn't really work very well. So we're going back to the other pumps just to test. And we essentially just want to find out the maximum operating conditions and hopefully apply my system to a better cryocooler, because my cryocooler is quite old. And if we can maximize this old cryocooler and make it really good and efficient, then it just shows that if we had a really good cryocooler, then we could make that very, very good, and it would be a very high performing system.
Brilliant.
So this is really just testing for future applications and seeing, what else we can do with my system.
You've touched on both, really. Go on. Sorry, go on.
No, sorry, it's me, Jess. I just want to say something, Ellie, because it looks so interesting, the description of, your workshop. And I just wanted to say, do you work in maintenance site or professor? And I might potentially want to visit for a quick tour.
So I work in Moran. There's 2 sites at CERN, by the way. For people who don't know, there's 2 big sites. There's Moran and Profsan, and Moran is a bigger one where most people work, and Profsan is a little bit smaller. Fergus works in Profsan, unfortunately. Joking. And I work in Moran.
Yeah, exactly. Fergus has got the
deer. So I work in Moran, and my lab is very cool. Sometimes I walk in and I see one of my colleagues like filling a bottle with liquid nitrogen, and you see all the gas evaporating around it. It's,
right.
It is very cool.
Yeah. Priscilla's planning her trip already.
Ideas. Well, I like to, contact students and graduates and science expression professionals when they start describing their role. I feel I want to put it I want to materialize it. I want to see it. So, Ellie,
I don't blame you.
It's not the last time we talk. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Jess. I was.
No, it's fine. No, I'm saying, Priscilla, can you record all this for us? Because I want to watch it as well. I want to know what's going on. So take some pictures or something and send it our way. Ellie, what I was going to say was about testing, and I think something which maybe is a bit of a misconception that I would have about CERN, that it would be, you maybe wouldn't have the freedom to test, and it would be, you'd have to go quite by the book, which I'm sure it is in some cases for health and safety. But like you say, it's quite exciting from what you're saying, and Fergus, in what you've been saying as well, that you get the chance to kind of test and experiment and see what works and what doesn't. Because I don't know, in my mind, I think, would you be given that freedom, that responsibility to do that at this kind of early stage? But it sounds that you do get that, which sounds great.
Yeah, it's really good. I have a lot of responsibility, so I'm like responsible for this system, and when I leave it overnight, I need to make sure that I've checked all the pressure sensors and that I'm not running the pumps at a silly speed, and that my vacuum's not going to explode overnight. So
I'd be like, it's like when you leave your straighteners on at home, you have to go back and check 3 times, but about 1,000,000 times more responsibility than that.
I mean, they do help us out, obviously. Like my supervisor walked me through it for the first 2 months, but now that I have more experience, I can handle my system, and he trusts me to follow the steps that he showed me, which is really fun.
Sorry, go on, Fergus.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say the same. Like, you are given responsibility, but it's not at too high a level so much that it's overwhelming. And the team is always there to support you, and there's no stress along the way. It's a good environment.
It's nice. That's good.
I think the thing with CERN is, you do recruit, it's such a large volume of students and early careers every year, and have done for such a long time that, you know what students can and can't handle, and where to push them and how to mold them to get the best out of them. And I think that really shows by the responsibility that you've been, just by talking to Fergus and Ellie, kind of shows that, you do respect them, and, you give them that responsibility that they need. Ellie, I just wanted to ask you a quick question. Cryogenics, obviously everything that you've talked about goes 100% over my head, but it's absolutely fascinating. Did you have any experience or know anything about cryogenics before you started working at CERN?
No, I had no idea. I just thought cryogenics was where they froze people to keep them from aging.
That's exactly what I said to Jess after our call.
Yeah, because so when I got the email saying this person would like to speak to you about their project, they work in the cryogenics department, you'll be looking at this counterflow heat exchanger system with a cryofan. I was like, what? Oh no, I was like emailing my lectures, and I was like, please, can you tell me everything you can tell me about cryogenics so I don't sound really stupid. But then when I had it wasn't really an interview, it was just a call to discuss the project. My supervisor, he was like, yeah, we don't expect you to know anything, but we'll teach you about it. So it's very good. I mean, some people have done modules on cryogenics before they got here, but my university didn't do cryogenics specifically, so it was a bit of a shock, but it's very cool.
I think that's great as well, that you don't have to have that experience to go and work in one of these departments and be trusted with such delicate and massive equipment. So I think that's just a really nice point to touch on.
Yeah, definitely. Fergus, I'm going to come back to you. If you could tell us a bit more, anything else you want to kind of add about your technical studentship so far? Like you say, you've got a couple of months left, but is there a particular project, particular experience you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I was going to talk about some of the stuff outside of just the work, or are we saving that for later? Yeah, so I guess so. One thing was the CERN relay race. That was good. So every year there's a big relay race around the Moran site, and everyone is getting involved. Everyone's either watching, everyone at CERN is either watching or taking part in the relay race. That was really fun. And also there's a CERN powerlifting society, which I didn't expect there to be. Maybe just a stereotype, but yeah, I've been going to that. It's been really good. I've met some cool people. So yeah, there's lots of stuff outside of just the work to do when you're here.
Yeah, definitely. You hear from the experience I've had with CERN over the years that it sounds like it's kind of like a campus feel, almost a bit like a university in that sense. Lots of people coming and going, from international, people coming in and out, and experiences in terms of not just, like you said, just about the day job, experiences that are there to enthuse and excite everyone, no matter what, where you're from. And I think it sounds really exciting. Earlier you were saying about, even just the wildlife that you have roaming around and things like that. Tell us a bit about that, Fergus, because earlier we talked about the deers.
Yeah, you see all kinds. Like there's a woodpecker outside my office. I see it every morning. It's like eating the grass. You got loads of deer. Yeah, it's a very pretty area. You've got the Jura mountain in the background, and it's got snow on the peaks at the moment, which is really nice. And you can see if the sky is really clear, you can see Mont Blanc and the Alps in the background.
Wow.
So. Yeah, it's very beautiful. Every morning I try to record coming over, because there's like a hill that you come over before you go, for me at least, before I go down to my lab, and when the sky is clear I can literally see Mont Blanc and the Alps, and it's just, honestly, it's so beautiful. It's amazing, it really is.
Sounds incredible. I've seen quite a few of these pictures on LinkedIn, so I'm friends with obviously Priscilla on LinkedIn, but also Anna that I used to work with at CERN, and you quite often see pictures from them about their walk to work or what it's like in the summer, and I was sat there thinking, so beautiful.
We have we had also from one of the restaurants, you can see the vineyards, because we are in a region full of vineyards, and there is a sentence that apparently an employee from CERN, I don't know who, but they coined a sentence that's something like, CERN is a state, a lab, in our university campus, and I don't know, something else, and that means that everything we do here is unique, and it is. We have our own rules and regulations. We are not really strictly bound to Swiss or French law. You know, we are part of our buildings, and the accelerator is in the French side of the border, part is in the Swiss. So I think it complements well what Ellie and Fergus were saying. It is spectacular, and I also see the Mont Blanc when I commute in the morning when I walk to CERN, and from my office I can also see the Jura with snow, and it's really beautiful.
There is something I do want to ask you about, because I spoke to one of my lovely contacts at Bristol yesterday, and she was actually lucky enough to come and visit you guys, and she said, oh, ask them all about the canteen, because apparently and the food at CERN is amazing. She said the experience that she had, even just at the canteen, was amazing.
Well, one of the things that's quite funny about CERN is that we have 3 restaurants, and I cannot think of a more physicist named restaurant. It's R1, R2, and R3. So yeah. And the food in R1 and R2 is good. I've not really been to R3, but that's Fergus's domain.
Yeah, so I'm working on the French side in Peloton, and maybe the food is not quite the same as in Switzerland, but it's quite amazing how, because they're quite close, and sometimes they have these e-bike schemes so you can cycle between the sites. So I can just say, if I want to eat at R1, I can just cross the border on my e-bike at lunch, go and eat at R1 and then cycle back. And sometimes the team goes to do that. It's a good trip. So
that's so cool. Like it really does. All on your bicycle. Yeah.
I want to jump.
Fergus, before we kind of move on to doing some misconceptions and stuff, one of the things that you'd mentioned during our prep session was that you ended up on Polish TV, and I just kind of want to get you to explain why and how that happened.
Yes. Okay. So basically, my supervisor, Sławek, was recently selected by the European Space Agency to be a reserve astronaut. So he got quite a lot of publicity in Poland. So all our team, he wanted to do like a coffee of all our team, and the Polish TV crew came in and filmed it, and we were all sitting there drinking our coffee, and they were filming us. So yeah, that's an experience I would never have had working anywhere else, and this shows some of the amazing people you can meet while you're working here. So
I know, I mean, the fact that you're working with an astronaut is, you know, quite cool.
It is cool. It's cool.
All right, Jess, sorry, go on.
Well, we've got to talk a bit next about you kind of moving away from the day job a bit, and we've kind of spoke a bit about the kind of the extracurricular activities that you've been involved in. But Ellie, is there anything else that you want to add apart from Polish TV and Diaz?
Well, a cool thing that you can do at CERN, not at CERN, in Geneva, there's the UN, United Nations, and they have like a UN beach. And because we work at CERN, we get access to this UN beach, and it's just really cool because like you're allowed to go to this private beach, which is like for, you know, people from the UN, and it feels very special. And you can see Mont Blanc again from there, and it's on the lake Geneva. And you can take out like little boats. Say they have like peddler boats. And in the summer, one of the first things Fergus and I did together was we went out on the peddler boat.
Yes. So of course, so for the audience watching, you two live together, don't you?
Yeah, Fergus is my flatmate. Well, it was crazy.
So that was by chance, wasn't it? That obviously that you guys are both on the webinar today.
Yeah, complete chance. Yeah, I just saw the advert for the flat online and signed up, and Fergus lived there.
Oh, you know it. Together. So next, I think we're going to talk a bit about misconceptions. Absash.
We are indeed. Thank you, Jess. So what I wanted to cover now is, I think there's a few things that when you look at an organisation like CERN, it can be a bit daunting or a little bit scary because of, you know, how well known, how respected it is, and the incredible things that go on there. So I just wanted to cover some of your misconceptions, preconceptions that you might have had before starting to work at CERN, or some that are quite common when you've been speaking to other students. So Fergus, can you kind of tell us your thoughts around that?
Yeah, so I guess one preconception I had was that there'd be all these super smart, intelligent people, but everyone would be like suit and tie. It would all be very formal, and very like academic environment. But while the first thing is right, you do meet loads of super intelligent people. They're all very down to earth, all very helpful, and just like normal people. So. And it's great. So sitting at coffee, and at the start, you're listening to them, and they're using talking about these complex systems, using all these crazy acronyms, and you don't know what they're on about. But then slowly, as you listen in, you can start to understand what they're talking about, and then you realize that everyone is just normal people who are interested in science. So.
Fantastic. Yeah, I think that's definitely a preconception that I would have had. And, you know, every time I speak to CERN and people at CERN, I just always get the feel that everyone is just so lovely and down to earth. But I think before I started working with CERN, I kind of had this everyone's a Sheldon Cooper kind of like in my mind, which I know is not right now that I work with CERN. But I think as an outsider, especially as a student, and I know this is something that Fergus and Ellie, when we talked before, you know, you didn't even realise that CERN would even offer opportunities to undergraduates and graduates, because that's kind of the perception around CERN, is that it is these super, super, super smart. Not that you guys aren't super, super, super smart, obviously, but I think that that's definitely something that I had that thought, Fergus, and it's good to hear that you had that, and hopefully that kind of blows that away from to the students that are watching today.
So just to add that, because it goes back to Ellie's point, you know, I think people, maybe the misconception also could be that, you know, you're going to have to know everything about everything to do with CERN before you apply. But that was kind of classic with your example, Ellie. You know, you didn't know about cryogenics at first, and, you know, you had to get a bit of advice before, you know, you went into the role that you're in. And it's just a perfect example. It's okay not to know. And, you know, this is part of the journey. You will get to know when you're there. So, yeah, it's just a bit of a point.
That leads me back on Ellie. I know you had some of your preconceptions that you wanted to touch upon as well.
Yeah, so for me, I assumed that everyone working at CERN would be, you know, like 10 years into their career, and that there would be, you know, a lot of like older people and mainly men, and that I would just not have any friends my age, or there wouldn't be co-workers my age. But it's not like that at all. It's crazy. Like it's literally like being back at university. Like there are so many young people, and it's a really good social life. You know, there's lots of different clubs you can join, and all the young people, you know, meet up and get together. You know, in my office, well, in my department, really, there's, you know, I have got a nice team, and like there's a lot of, you know, young people, technical students and fellows and interns, and you know, we all just get on really well. But even, you know, with the people who are a bit further into their career, you don't feel like you're a student. Like you're treated like you work there. Like you're treated like you got the job like everyone else, because like at the end of the day you did. And you know, I don't feel like I'm a student and everyone else is like a lecturer or a teacher kind of feel. It does feel like they're my co-workers, and it doesn't feel like inferior, because I was worried that I would just not feel at home. But it's very welcoming, and there's, you know, a lot of young people to put you at ease, and there's actually a lot of women in my team. CERN is doing a scheme. It's 25 by 25, so they want to get 25% women by 2025.
Fantastic.
And in my team, in the cryogenics department, there are a lot of women. I'd say maybe even 50-50.
Fantastic.
Which is nice. It's nice to see that representation.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Ellie. Yeah, I think again, it's something that I think a lot of our students probably watching today would probably have that preconception that it is probably older people, but you know, there's such a great cohort of young engineers and scientists at CERN. And obviously we're going to hear a little bit more about, kind of that life and how you kind of got to living where you are and stuff like in a few minutes, Ellie. But Priscilla, going to come to you now about one of the preconceptions. I suppose this is more in kind of the recruitment world, but you kind of go on to what you want to talk about there.
Sure. For the recruitment side, like, Adam and I, we attend a lot of events to bring attention to students to come to CERN, and also graduates and experienced professionals, as I mentioned before, and even before I applied as well. And is the case including engineering students like Ellie and Fergus when I reach out to them, and graduates. Sometimes few months ago, I remember there was this engineer, and she had 2 master's degree, including one in aerospatial engineer and another one in general engineering. And when I approached her to talk about CERN, she was so scared because she thought, like, yeah, but I'm not a theoretical physicist. I don't have a PhD. I have, well, then she had her printed CV. This is my CV. Then I read, what? I stand for graduate in aerospace engineering. I mean, she studied in the US, but she was from one of our member states. And I thought, of course, you have a place at CERN. So we had this myth that, we only hire physicists, when in reality, only 2 to 3% of our staff members are particle physicists. Majority of our recruitments, we are looking for engineers, so especially mechanical, electrical, mechatronics, and a bit less so, but also civil engineering, general engineering. So yeah, you don't have to have a PhD, and you don't have to be a physicist to come to CERN. You don't even have to study at STEM, as I mentioned before. We have a whole complex, with all the support, the administrative departments as well. Yeah,
I think I couldn't agree more. When I first started working with CERN, I had the same preconception that it was physicists. But yeah, I mean, even when you look on the hub and you've mentioned civil engineering, it's not something I would have ever associated with CERN, but there's lots of opportunities there. So so that's really, really interesting. I think, drill that into everybody listening today. It's not just physicists.
and Sophie, I remember even when I during my interview process, that even though I was studying a lot about CERN before my interview, I still thought we were hiring academics, and I kept referring the interview to academics hire, and they were just saying, no, but we don't hire academics. And I thought, okay, so it took a while for me to understand that even students doing even degree lower than the bachelor, like this high national diploma, they still can come to CERN as a so-called graduates in one of our graduate schemes. So yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you, Priscilla. And then Adam, finishing with you on misconceptions and preconceptions, tell us what you think.
Yeah, so also before I joined, and also what I hear from people, it's a big step, of course, going abroad. So the relocation process was really it's care for me, but actually it's not that bad at all, because because CERN actually helps with all this onboarding process. You get like to-do list, what you should prepare for. You have access to internal marketplace, so you can really ensure your housing either on the Swiss or French side. Even I was afraid if I can find something, even though I don't speak French, but it wasn't a problem at all in the end. And also the second thing is, like, isn't it too expensive? Because sometimes there is this misconception that Switzerland is very expensive. Yes, of course, some prices are much higher, but when you read through our job position on Gradcracker, you know what the allowance is for each program, and I can assure you that that it's counted well, so you can easily survive here, pay the rent, and then have fun and have a proper life here.
Absolutely. And yeah, lovely. I think that leads us on very nicely to find out a little bit more about that kind of relocation piece from Fergus and Ellie, because I completely agree with you, Adam. As a student, especially looking for a placement year or maybe even a short-term internship, it can seem like a really big step to go to a different country to undertake that placement. But I know that obviously Fergus and Ellie, we touched upon the fact that you've ended up living together, but can you just kind of talk a little bit more about the relocation process and some of the things that you utilize to kind of help you during that? Ellie, starting with you.
Yeah, so when I got accepted into CERN, after having a meeting with my supervisor, he told me that I should request to join like a Young at CERN Facebook page.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
there they have like a marketplace and loads of posts and discussions. And one of them was like housing.
Mhm.
And that's where I found the flat, because I saw it was posted on this marketplace. And I was a bit nervous to sign for a house that I'd never seen, because I wasn't going to be able to get there before I signed for the flat. But I had a call with the girl who was in my room before, and then I spoke to Fergus on the call, and the landlord was so friendly, and it just worked out. It was very easy. But also, if you are a bit nervous to sign a contract for something like that before actually seeing the house, you can stay at the CERN hostel. So there is a hostel at CERN on the CERN site, and there's also one in the Saint-Genis, which is the village in France where we live. It's where a lot of the young people at CERN live. On the French side, because it's a bit cheaper. Yeah, and so yeah, there's a hostel there for CERN, and then there's also a hostel on the CERN site, and you can stay there until you find a place. It's really nice.
Fantastic. So, and Fergus, did you have the same experience? Is that how you found where you're currently living before obviously Ellie moved in?
Yeah, exactly the same. Yeah, and I just planned it ahead in advance, so I didn't have to find a house while I was working here. I found a house before I moved over, and then I had to stay in the hostel one night, and then I moved into my house in France. So that was good. But I guess there's also like other groups, like there's a Discord group, WhatsApp group. So you can, if you have any concerns or you're worried, you can always.
There's always someone to help you.
Yeah, you can always contact people.
Yeah, it's really funny because I was struggling. I wasn't sure what to do for my visa, because CERN had sent me some information about it and they started to help me, but I was just a bit panicky because you're moving to a new country. Obviously, you're going to be panicky no matter how much help you get. So I was messaging on this WhatsApp group, and then someone replied and they talked to me, and I was like, oh great, thanks. And then I came to CERN and I made some friends, and I realized that the person who had messaged me from the WhatsApp group is now like one of my best friends here, which is crazy that I was in contact with him before. Now he's like my best friend who I hang out with. So I was really cool, because the fact that you can make contacts before you even get here, it helps you feel a bit more settled. Because it is really scary just moving to a whole other country on your own. But
yeah, absolutely, it is.
Like a few people that you already have spoken to or texted, it makes you feel a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think you're right, Ellie. No matter how much support you've got, it's always going to be a daunting process. But I think that's the same with starting any job, whether being in a different country adds an extra step of nerves. But starting a new job and moving anywhere is always going to be daunting. But there's so much that's happening at CERN to kind of support you through that process. Fergus, can you tell us a little bit more about this little village, which is basically a little CERN village, and what that's like?
Well, it's not only a little CERN village. I think the locals would be offended at that. But so there's the nearest town in France is called Saint-Genis, and it's got like a supermarket. It's got pharmacy. It's got the cheese shop. So when you go into the shop, the people working there will be French, so they won't speak to you in English. So you do need to learn a little bit of French for the shop, just like buying more groceries. Like say, oh, can I pay by card, or how much is this bread, or something like that. You need to learn that level. But there are there's courses at CERN for French. So while it's not required to work, it's not required if you're a student to learn French. It is provided some quite good courses. So
I'm glad you said that, because both of your pronunciation is very good. It sounds like
yeah, it wasn't when we arrived. When I came to the airport, the guy at the border, he said, oh, where are you saying? And I was like, oh, Saint-Genis Pouilly. And he was like, what? He was like, you mean Saint-Genis Pouilly? Yeah.
Oh, it's good.
That's fantastic.
Again,
But it
another
sounds like you've been,
experience, isn't it?
it is, yeah.
Skill to have.
Yeah.
Again, probably wouldn't get that with any other sort of internship or placement year. Brilliant. Thank you so much for giving us an overview of how all of that works and relocation and everything that you've talked us through so far. I'm going to come back to Adam now, just so that we can kind of get now to the details of how you apply to CERN and what is the recruitment process. So Adam, could you give us that overview, please?
Of course. So then after going through our position on Gradcracker, and you find the one that is just for you, then I advise you to go really strictly of the eligibility criteria and the required documentation, so you can start building and strengthening your application. It all starts in this online application form where you fill in this form. Those are just basic information about you. But also then you actually start to create your profile in so-called Smart Recruiters, which is our platform which we use. And it's actually like you need to write your experience and your university studies. And in this case, because usually you also upload your CV, but you try to be really strict to the points in your CV, but rather on this side, you can be as specific as possible. So really use the right keywords, and everything you think is relevant, you would like to share about yourself. Also, you get the chance to show your motivation. So don't forget about this. And then it's always also good to think like for what is actually your idea, what would you like to do at CERN, so you actually can be visible for the potential supervisors. Then when everything uploaded, everything went well. After the deadline, which for the technical studentship is again on the 27th of March, we will check all the applications. If your application is complete, you will get the message from us. And this message will also invite you to a video interview. This video interview is actually asynchronous. So you would record yourself answering a few basic questions about yourself. You can even like use this opportunity to strengthen your application even more, so you can show more your motivation, some specific situations, to show like how you actually work in a team, or how you achieve goals, what are you proud of, etc., etc. So it's actually very exciting, even though it might be a bit stressful. So be prepared technically. So everything like your microphone, your headphones, that everything works, your internet connection, of course. And then only to that what maybe awaits you is that you have a limited time to answer the questions on this video interview. So you have 2 minutes to answer, 1 minute to prepare in general, and only one no retake, so you have only one chance to take it. So really take the efforts to do so, but don't worry, you are going to be guided throughout the whole system. And
Fantastic.
then what you can expect, there is a bit longer time that you might not hear back from us, because then actually the applications are shared across all the departments. So every potential supervisor has the chance to reach you out, to find if you are the right person for their project. So then you might be contacted during the next, if I'm not mistaken, 2.5 months by a potential supervisor until the selection committee. And the selection committee in this case, again with the technical student program, is then in June. So in June is actually the latest deadline where you could hear back from us with actually the final result. But of course, in the meantime, someone from CERN can reach out to you, as Fergus and Ellie were also mentioning. And then after that, maybe it's also important to say when actually is the date you could start. So after that, you are going to be given all the information with the onboarding. After signing the contract, there is everything prepared, as I've mentioned, all those to-do lists, etc., etc. And usually the earliest starting date is like 2 months after the selection committee. So with this round, you could join CERN August, September this year. So this is the overview for the graduate program. It's almost the same, but this time a bit shorter, because it's open 4 times a year. So there the waiting period on your result is I think 1 month shorter than it's with the student.
Fantastic. And Adam, the documentation that you mentioned at the beginning, what do the students need to supply as part of their application?
Yeah. So for the technical student program, it's definitely the CV. And then we also need to check your transcript of records, the most recent one. So we also can check the eligibility criteria, as we've mentioned, the 18th completed months of studies. And then we need a reference letter, ideally from a university professor. So this is also something to keep in mind. So you start preparing before the application deadline, because all these documents need to be uploaded until the application deadline, because then sometimes happens that some people misunderstand this and they don't apply the reference letter, and I think it's a pity then to be rejected only because of that. So
yes,
yeah, prepare in advance. And for the graduate program, it's almost the same. You can this time the reference letter is not mandatory, but we will need, of course, your highest achieved diploma, or if not obtained yet, the transcript of records. But it's always clearly stated in the vacancies.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Adam. Jessica.
Oh, I'm just dying just quickly to ask if Ellie or Fergus, do you have any kind of top tips for students listening in to either get, those extra, references in, or anything about, the application process, the video interview, just a quick top tip that you would give to either younger self now or anyone listening?
So I'd say it's quite specific. It doesn't apply to all streams, but if you're applying for like a programming role or a hardware or electronics, and you have a cool project that you've worked on, it would be recommended to put it into a Git repo and upload it to something like GitHub. Make sure it's formatted well. It has a nice file structure. Add like a README, and so and you can put that in your CV. This is what my supervisors recommend to me. And then they can see like what you've done, and that you know how to use Git and stuff like that. So that's one tip.
Brilliant tip there, Fergus. Thank you.
Really good.
For me, the application process was kind of a blur, because I didn't really expect that I would actually get the place. So for me, it was just more of a practice application.
That's a massive compliment to you then, Ellie.
I had no idea that I would be able to get this. I was very relaxed in my interview, because I kind of just took it, I'm just gonna see how it goes, be as relaxed as possible, be friendly, smile.
That's good.
I
think that's a great tip though.
I guess just being relaxed really helped, because my friend was in a similar situation and she was also relaxed and she got her placement. So yeah, I think being relaxed and just being open and friendly, because your employers, they want to work with you. Like, they have to work with you for a year. They want to work with someone they can relate to, or that
absolutely
is that's enjoyable to be
great.
around, so.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ellie. And Adam, any hints and tips that you would give to our audience about putting in a successful application and standing out during the interviews?
Yeah, I would repeat myself again with the be as specific as possible. Also, not showing only hard skills, but also don't forget about your soft skills, because as Ellie mentioned, the potential supervisors want to see with whom they are going to work with. So you need to show that you are a team player, that you can behave, that you achieve some goals, that you have some values, etc. But don't forget about this, because sometimes people forget that. And the other thing, if you are asked during your selection process about any situation you were in and how you react in this situation, don't forget to add the particular examples of what you did, how you achieved this goal, and yeah, exactly. What was actually the procedure, how you get to the point. So yeah, this was
mentioned like the STAR method, don't they? So
exactly.
Like,
this is the start.
Task, action, result.
Exactly.
A lot. So yeah, definitely use that. That's a good shout.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something that students can quite often forget. Be specific, use the star example, and that'll stand out in the interview. So thank you so much for that, Adam. We're going to finish with a couple of quick fire rounds like we often do during the webinars, and some of my favorite questions. So we're going to start with, what is your favorite thing about working at CERN? And Fergus, starting off with you.
So I think my favorite thing about working at CERN has been living in a new country for a year and learning a lot from all the people I've met.
Fantastic. Ellie?
Mine would be the working environment. Everyone is just very friendly and open, and they're always up for doing something at the weekend, like we go skiing and we go hiking. It's just, the working environment is just really nice. Like, just the people here really make it what it is.
Brilliant. And Priscilla?
First of all, this CERN's mission and purpose and values speaks to me a lot. We are not for profit, and we are open source. And also, I think everybody mentioned about to a larger extent or lesser extent about the culture at CERN. I'm always happy on Mondays, and we have and I have lunch at the restaurants with people not only, like, I don't work on a silo, not only from HR, but even the next building is the building of theoretical physicists work. And sometimes I go to have lunch even with them and with a lot of engineers. And honestly, I feel comfortable to talk about astrological sign with the theoretical physicists, and they laugh at me, but like they're but yeah, it's the day-to-day life, to take a scooter to go to our meeting room. We can have the bike or scooters. So this day-to-day life at CERN, that for me is incredible.
Amazing. Thank you, Priscilla. And Adam?
For me, is this university and leisure vibe we have at CERN, so that I can go to library, I can actually borrow any book I want, and I can join any club I want. I meet a lot of people like my peers, but I can also learn from people that are in their career and in their life much further, and we are still on the same level. So this is what I enjoy.
Amazing. I mean, it's I sometimes get to the end of the webinar and just like, it sounds so amazing. And yeah, it sounds like you've all having amazing experiences at CERN. We're going to finish with our cool or interesting fact about CERN. So Fergus, starting with you.
Okay, my cool fact is that CERN were some of the first people to industrialize the capacitive touchscreen, such as on your phone, in the 1970s, early 1970s. It was used in the SPS control center. SPS is one of the accelerators in CERN that feeds into the LHC. So in the 90s, before the LHC was made. So I thought that was cool.
I mean, yeah, the fact that when you said 19s, I was expecting you to say like 1990s or something, but 1970s is just incredible, isn't it? Ellie, over to you.
So CERN actually gets sheep to maintain their grassy areas, and every few years they test one of the sheep for radioactivity. Since the sheep graze the grass that's growing at CERN, it's a good measure of the radioactivity of the area and the soil. So that's quite
brilliant.
funny.
I love that
I was
one.
cycling into work one day and I just saw some sheep. I was like, what's going on?
Brilliant.
I'm guessing they're not radioactive though, Ellie. They're all okay.
I hope not. They don't look
good. Brilliant. And Priscilla?
Yeah, I love to learn these cool facts about CERN, and I'm always trying to hunt for them. But for me, it's the fact that the CMS detector, which is one of our 4 main detectors at CERN, it's heavier than the Eiffel Tower. It contains about 10,000 tons of iron, which is more than iron than the Eiffel Tower contains. And also the Atlas detector, which is another very famous detector at CERN, is as big as a 5-story building. There's a very famous photo where a scientist is like, there's a dot that is a scientist, and the whole majestic instrument, the whole Atlas behind the scientist. Yeah.
I mean, the scale is just huge, isn't it? You can't wrap your mind around it until you get examples like that. And Adam, finishing with you.
Yeah, for those that didn't know, at CERN, actually, the World Wide Web was invented by a British scientist, which was Tim Berners-Lee, and it was in 1989. So thanks to that, we can actually run this webinar and be here together. And if you if one day visit CERN, you can also go to the office, and there's like a golden place, and there you can like see where the World Wide Web was born. And on our webpage, actually, you can go to the link and see how the first actually www looked. So
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
very
Amazing.
interesting.
Fantastic. I mean, it's been brilliant listening to you all today. So thank you so much for joining us and giving us such an amazing insight into applying to and working at CERN. As always, the recording of this webinar will be available for our students to watch later this afternoon on the CERN Company Hub and in the Gradcracker Career Centre. And we'll also then break this up into bite-sized chunks and highlights for you as well. Remember, our employers absolutely love it when you tell them that you have watched their webinar, as they know that means that you will already have a good understanding of them as an organisation, and it shows that you have a real interest in working for them. So students looking for a placement, remember right now the technical studentships are open for applications and the graduate roles will be open in the next couple of weeks. So either apply or follow to be alerted. So that's all for this season, folks. We'll be back again in September this year with season 4 of the Gradcracker webinars, where we'll be joined by some more incredible employers. These will be listed in the Gradcracker Career Centre over the summer. Thank you once again to our wonderful panel from CERN, and we'll see you all in September. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.